The lizard has been following the same deer for 3 days. It doesn't chase, it doesn't ambush, it just follows, calmly, persistently, like it already knows how this ends. And here's the thing, it does. For decades, scientists thought they understood exactly how the Komodo dragon killed. They had a theory. It was taught in textbooks. It was repeated in documentaries. It was, as far as the scientific establishment was concerned, settled. They were wrong, and the way they were wrong tells us something important, not just about this animal, but about how confidently we misread the natural world. Think about what you already know about Komodo dragons. Large, ancient-looking, slow until they're not. You've probably heard the story. They bite their prey, step back, and wait. The mouth, supposedly. It is a biological weapon in itself, a festering cocktail of bacteria so lethal that a single bite is essentially a death sentence delivered in slow motion. The prey wanders off. The dragon follows. Days pass. The animal weakens. The dragon feeds. It's a compelling story. It's dramatic. It's disgusting in exactly the right way to stick in your memory. There's just one problem. It was never really true. Hold that thought. The Komodo dragon, Varanus komodoensis, is the largest living lizard on Earth. Adults can reach 3 meters in length and weigh over 70 kilograms. They live on a handful of small islands in eastern Indonesia: Komodo, Rinca, Flores, Gili Motang. Their world is hot, dry, and unforgiving. Open savanna, tropical forest, rocky coastline. They share it with deer, pigs, water buffalo, and the occasional unlucky goat. Are by any honest measure apex predators. And yet for most of the 20th century, scientists and naturalists struggle to explain how an animal that moves at a moderate pace with relatively small teeth for its size could reliably bring down prey many times its own weight. The math didn't add up. Something was doing the killing. But what? The bacteria theory filled that gap neatly. Observations in the field showed that Komodo bites rarely killed immediately. Animals that escaped often died days later. Researchers found a staggering variety of bacterial species in Komodo saliva samples, over 50 in some studies, including strains that cause severe septicemia. The conclusion seemed obvious. The mouth was the weapon. The bacteria did the work. It was a clean, memorable explanation, and for decades, nobody looked hard enough to question it. But here's where it gets strange. In 2005, a Komodo dragon at the Singapore Zoo bit one of its keepers. Serious wound. The keeper received immediate, aggressive antibiotic treatment and recovered quickly, with no signs of systemic infection. If the bacterial theory was correct, that shouldn't have been possible. Bacteria that lethal don't simply yield to a standard antibiotic course. A few researchers noticed. One of them was Bryan Fry, a venom biologist at the University of Melbourne. Fry had spent years studying venom systems across reptiles, and something about the Komodo story had never sat right with him. He knew that many of the bacteria found in Komodo saliva were also common environmental contaminants, not specialized bioweapons, but opportunistic microbes that would be found in the mouth of almost any carnivore that ate rotting meat and never brushed its teeth. He also knew that healthy Komodo dragons living in clean, captive environments were perfectly capable of killing prey efficiently. If bacteria were the mechanism, captive animals should be less effective hunters. They weren't. So Fry got access to a Komodo dragon that had died of natural causes, and he looked at the jaw. What he found changed everything. I want you to sit with this for a second, because what Fry discovered wasn't just a correction to a textbook entry. It was a fundamental reframing of how this animal has existed and hunted for millions of years. Beneath the gum tissue of the Komodo dragon, Fry and his team identified paired venom glands. Not symbolic. The vestigial structures, functional venom glands, producing anticoagulant compounds that, once introduced into the bloodstream, prevent clotting, accelerate blood pressure collapse, and induce a state of shock in the prey animal. The findings were published in 2009 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, one of the most prestigious scientific journals on the planet. The Komodo dragon is venomous. It always was. We just never looked for it. Now think about what that means. Every nature documentary you watched as a child, every textbook passage you read, every confident explanation offered by scientists and educators for the better part of a century, all of it built on an assumption that was never properly tested. The bacteria theory wasn't based on rigorous venom analysis, it was based on observation of outcomes and a failure to look deeper. Fry's team also revisited the mechanics of the bite itself. The Komodo's teeth are serrated and laterally compressed, designed not to crush but to slice. When the dragon bites and pulls back, it creates deep, lacerating wounds. The venom enters the bloodstream rapidly through these wounds. Combined with the anticoagulant effect, even large prey can begin experiencing blood pressure collapse within minutes. The 3-day pursuit isn't bacteria slowly poisoning the animal. It's internal hemorrhage doing what internal hemorrhage does, quietly, efficiently, inevitably. The dragon isn't waiting for the prey to die from infection. It's following an animal that is already, physiologically, losing the fight. And this is where I find myself genuinely unsettled in the most fascinating way. Because the bacteria theory wasn't proposed by careless people. It was proposed by scientists working carefully with the information they had. The problem wasn't incompetence. The problem was that no one thought to ask the right question. No one looked at the jaw and said, "What if this animal is doing something we haven't cataloged yet?" We looked at the Komodo dragon, ancient, slow, heavily built, and we fitted into a category we already understood: scavenger logic, passive killing, a creature that let biology do the work that speed and precision could not. And in doing that, we missed what was actually in front of us. The venom discovery also reshuffled our understanding of reptile evolution. Fry's broader research suggested that venom systems evolved once in a common ancestor of lizards and snakes far earlier than previously thought, and were subsequently lost in many lineages while being retained and elaborated in others. The Komodo sits on a branch of that tree that we had essentially mislabeled. That single jaw, examined at the right moment by someone asking the right question, opened up a completely different view of how reptile predation evolved over hundreds of millions of years back to that deer. It's day 3. The deer has been moving slowly for hours, weakening in ways it cannot understand. Its blood is not clotting properly. Its pressure is dropping. The Komodo follows at a steady, unhurried pace, not because it is patient, not because it is cruel, but because its biology has already done the critical work. The outcome was written at the moment of the bite. The dragon closes the distance, not because bacteria are working through the animal system, because venom is. We watched this happen for 100 years and told the wrong story. I think about that often. How much of what we consider settled knowledge about the animal kingdom is built on the same kind of confident, untested assumption? how many animals we've quietly underestimated, how many mechanisms we've misread because we stopped looking once we had an explanation that felt sufficient. The Komodo dragon didn't change. We just finally looked closely enough to see what was always there. If you think there's another animal we've been dramatically wrong about, something science got badly wrong and later had to correct, drop it in the comments. I want to read every single one of those, because if this channel is about anything, it's about the gap between what we assume and what's actually happening out there. Nature is far more brilliant than we imagine. See you on our next exploration.